Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Bobby Harrington. Bobby is the founder of Rubicon COA, which specializes in performance coaching programs and immersive leadership development events. Bobby has practiced leadership in sports, martial arts, the military, private business, and a Fortune 100 oil and gas company. Bobby has taught leadership in 24 different countries across 13 languages. His work includes a focus on people leadership, team design, and technical innovation leadership. He is a United States Marine Corps Gulf War veteran and author of Lead You, the winning combination to achieve personal and professional success. I'm excited to have him on the show to learn more about self-leadership and how that can transform anyone into the leader they aspire to be. So, Bobby, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about this particular subject of self-leadership because I think it's really important from a leadership perspective. But before we dive into that, tell us about Rubicon COA. What do you do? What makes your company so unique?
Sure. So Rubicon COA is basically immersive leadership events, and the design of our coaching programs was a little unique. All the products we have are highly personalized. Like the coaching program, I'll work with 2 to 4 people per year in the executive space, just because I don't want to spread myself thin. And, the fewer people I have, the better I can serve them so they can achieve their results. So I do work one-on-one, and on the event side, our cadre, they're all experienced. We are the best who have public service experience. They have life experience. They've all suffered failure, setbacks, and struggle. We've all overcome that. So, there's lessons and anecdotes that we can give people from real life.
What do these events look like? You mentioned cadre, and all I can think of is like a Navy SEAL type of program. What are they like?
No, it's just nothing like a Hell Week or a boot camp.
Okay.
It's more of a retreat and a challenge. So we have a 2-day. That's sort of to introduce folks to our methodology, and it's kind of a recruiting tool for the 4-day. The 4-day is sort of a retreat challenge where we go out to the YO Ranch here in Kerrville, Texas. It's 16,000 acres, and we ruck around there, and we get to find parts of ourselves that we didn't know we had, and we totally disconnect from civilization for 4 days. Yeah, and then finally we offer a 5 to 6 day retreat for corporations who are seeking to walk away with real tools they can use. We don't do trust falls and any cute stuff like that. And if you like that stuff, that's fine. But, we want to give you high impact tools that you can use the day you leave.
What kind of feedback do you get from the leaders that, get out there? Like you said, rucking on 16,000 acres, you can, you learn a lot about yourself during that. So what are some feedback that you get from those guys?
Yeah, they love it. If people only knew how far they could push themselves, because where your mind goes, the body will follow, nominally, unless you've got some, condition. But, if you tell yourself you can do it, you can do it. And, disconnecting is what people like as well.
Yeah.
It's quiet out. It's quiet out there. There's, no phones. I mean, you can have a phone if you want one, but, for the most part, it's 10 or 12 hours a day without a phone.
I love it. I go do a hunting trip every year, and that's my favorite part of it is that my cell phone doesn't work.
Yeah.
You just kind of turn it off, put it away, and then just enjoy nature. Yeah, that's good.
Well, there's a lot of clarity in silence, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
If you can be comfortable with your own thoughts out in nature, that's why I like long walks. Go for maybe a 2.75 to 3.25 mile walk. Every day. Usually early morning when it's quiet, and just a clear head and can see things really clearly. I might think about just 1 or 2 things, along that walk, but I don't even notice the surroundings sometimes.
Yeah. I had a guest on that talked about sometimes our cell phones end up being like a pacifier. For in the past we used to be bored, and we had and when you're bored, your thoughts go to all the different things that you could be doing or want to do, and or creative thoughts. But we sort of pacify that with a phone. I think sometimes we don't have those quiet moments where we allow our brain to just be free to think and and ruminate on different things that are maybe bothering you or what have you, because we tend to turn it off with that phone.
Yeah, I mean, everything is engineered for the phone now. I mean, absolutely everything. And it's hard not to look at it every, 10 minutes. Someone's texting you something, or you got to double, triple, fribble, verify your password. I mean, I just need one more password, John.
You too, huh?
I need to double sign in, another time as well, and I know they do this for protection, to protect us from nefarious people, but I'm just making fun of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I learned this, especially starting my own company. We was like, how many different systems do we have? And how many different passwords that do I need to have? Just to run a manufacturing plant. Yeah.
Also what I noticed the last few years is, people sort of treating the phone as like a safety blanket or something,
Yeah.
like gotta have it, gotta have it.
Yeah. I mean, you're old enough to remember, my wife and I talk about it a lot. We used to just jump in a car and go. We didn't have a cell phone.
Ooh.
If the car broke down,
No.
you waved somebody down, or you found a phone, or you stopped at a house or whatever, but you didn't have anything. Yeah.
Like not even a map even.
Right. No GPS.
You just stop and ask people, right?
Yeah.
And now it's GPS, and they can tell you how fast you're going, and how many policemen you're up ahead, and where you can get Chili's or Burger King, whatever.
Right.
It's like all done for you already.
Well, I'm sure our listeners are loving this boomer discussion, right?
Yeah, really. Dating ourselves. Well, I would like to just date myself one more time. The first job I had after the Marine Corps was in commercial diving, and they gave me a beeper.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
A beeper.
Yeah. I know I had one. That's that's how old we are, right?
Yeah. Hope folks have a good laugh.
So, when you look at the work that you do in leadership development, and helping people, kind of get control of their lives, how much of your military service impacted what you do now?
Oh yeah, major. Served as a rock solid foundation, that I've built on over the last 30 years. The first thing they do in the Marine Corps is teach you, leadership traits, attributes like justice, judgment, enthusiasm, decisiveness. And, on the principle side, there's some there for individuals as well. And like, know yourself and seek improvement, right? And that's just about constant evaluation. So I've always done that. Set the example. Our conduct is always on display. So, we have to know that people are going to emulate, what you do, as a leader or even as an individual, right? Make sound and timely decisions, that applies to individuals as well as, leaders with a position. The better sound and timely decisions you make, the more confidence you're going to build in yourself, and more confidence you're going to build in other people. And they'll say, hey, well, he's considered everything when he makes a decision. I trust that. We're not always perfect at that, but, we try. I think the last one I'd round that out with is, it's an important one too. It's seek responsibility and take responsibility for your actions. So there's two parts to that. Seeking responsibility is, like asking for an assignment of increasing responsibility so you can grow, right? So you can make more of an impact. However, you have to always qualify that with take responsibility for your actions and decisions, take ownership, because at the end of the day, it's on us when we make decisions. We are the ones making those decisions. So, yeah, I mean, the Marine Corps had major influence on my leadership style and how I view leadership.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's remarkable, and we've had a lot of veterans on the show, is the fact that leadership is an essential skill they teach in the military. So sometimes in corporate, we ignore we don't teach you leadership. We expect you to know accounting or marketing or sales or operations or quality, what have you, but those are considered hard skills. And then leadership is sort of a soft skill, and you sort of figure it out on your own. Whereas in the military, they're like, no, this is a hard skill and you need to know it. And that's what I like about, at least my experience, was that it was part of our training. Leadership was an essential part of the training, just as much as how to, operate a nuclear reactor. That was also part of the training, but it was on equal status. It wasn't just an afterthought,
Well, it starts. See, that's
Yeah.
the difference between military and civilian world. In the military, it starts with leadership. In the corporate world, leadership is sort of secondary. They get
Yes.
fixated on processes and thingies and presentations and managing and processes and forget about leadership. And that's the quandary. These large companies want people who know how to lead, but people don't ever get that training. And then people want leadership training, but they can't get it from their company they work for.
Right.
The one they're supposed to be improving the property of that company, right, and returning value to the shareholders. That's why we're there with big companies, right?
Yeah.
Improve the property and return value to the shareholders. Like if you don't know how to lead yourself or lead other people, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
If you're an SME, if you're a subject matter expert, doing something, this one thing, I mean, that's fine. You might not want to, learn about leadership, but I would still say that, on a personal level, you can learn self-leadership and, lead by example. Right.
Yes. That's why we're going to get into your book. So your new book is called Lead You, The Winning Combination to Achieve Personal and Professional Success. So what compelled you to write this book?
Well, a few years back, I just felt another season of my life was coming and I was going to retire. And I retired right at 30 years, in oil and gas. And said to myself, okay, what am I going to do between 53 and 60, age 53 and 60 or whatever. I've got to do something. And I want to do something I like, I'm passionate about, actually obsessed about, and it's leadership. So I had something to say, based on my 34-year journey. And, the first thing I did was did some research on Amazon because that's kind of where I buy books, only to learn there were 60,000 titles on leadership. Okay. So, okay, that's a pretty big hill, man. There's some pretty big names out there. So what can I do that's different, that's not out there right now? And so that's where I came up with the concept of Lead You. And Lead You is one in a series. The next book will be Leading Teams and Organizations. And the third book will be Leading Through Change. Because a lot of people sleep on leading through change, but knowing how to lead through change is, if it was a person on a team, it would be an impact player, right? And you learn how to be transparent and learn how to engage, the workforce, you're going to get what you want during that change event. So, back to Lead You, I wanted to do something that was straightforward. There's no high-minded leadership concepts. Again, this goes back to being an expert leader versus a leadership expert. I talk about real things and give real anecdotes. And at the end of each chapter, we give folks a little bit of homework, so they can ask themselves some questions and figure out how they can start their self-leadership journey. The way the book's laid out, it starts, there's a little bit of my story, what preempted me to write the book. And when I was 45, I didn't have a nervous breakdown, but, I'd had some big success and within my company in the Chevron, and that often masks, flaws and cracks and stuff like that. And, so I left one facility in the United States and went to assignment overseas, and it was quite difficult. It was a big culture shift and just very difficult place, to work. And that kind of, that with the company burnout from working on this one project for 8 years and developing technology and, sort of fighting uphill, that all sort of took its toll. And, I sort of had on the side of my bed one night, I come to the universe, discussion with myself. And so chapter 1 starts out with the conversation. You really have to ask yourself, where am I? Where do I want to go? And what is it going to take for me to get there? And am I willing to do it? Right. And then from there, I laid out the book, just how I learned leadership, start with character, values. Then we talk about self-trust, which is a precursor to self-belief, and discipline and commitment. We have a chapter in there on perfect because, I grew up in a house where my mother was perfect, and it sort of rubbed off on me. So I learned that I didn't have to be perfect, at age 45 when I reflected, you know. So I wanted to give the user or the reader, right, permission that they don't have to be perfect, but hey, strive for excellence, because sometimes when we try to go for perfection, it becomes a little bit destructive. Whereas if we're trying for excellence, it's about doing your best, each and every day, and like not beating yourself up extensively if you don't meet the mark, because there's really no utility, in that. And then we round out the book with self-care, a chapter on self-care, which, I didn't learn to do that until I was 45 either. I was a quintessential workaholic, I'd go work 12 to 14 hours, come home, work out a couple hours, eat, spend a little bit of time with the family, do it again.
Yeah.
And that went on for decades. And then, I had some bouts of insomnia, after the Marine Corps and all that. So, all that, just sort of came to a head. So I wanted to give folks a chapter on self-care, because, your mental health and your physical health is most important, because if I'm not the best for me, then I can't be my best for my family, for my work, for my community, for my colleagues, the people that are going to press the button and call them Bobby. I was talking about this yesterday in one of the podcasts. Dependability is probably the single, biggest trait that people can have between, one another from a self-leadership, point of view. And then we round out the book, congratulating the people for reading through the book, but letting them know that, leadership is a journey where we're never done, right? We're just never done. There's too much to know about. There's too much to practice. There's too many dimensions. But we can reach some level of mastery. Don't get me wrong. You can. But my point is that everyone should have some element of humility and always remain teachable and coachable, right? As leaders, right? Up until my last day of work at Chevron, I would give the most junior person my ear, right? Because I wanted to hear their perspective. The more perspectives you have that are from unique, backgrounds, some of the best perspectives I've ever had were cold eye, right? Where someone really doesn't know about the problem we're working, but we ask them to come in for like a peer review. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, that and that. Oh, we've been working on it for 3 days and we didn't see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then we invite people to, obviously check out our website and, give us feedback on the book, where they'd like to see improvements, for future editions and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it sounds like a really well-rounded approach to self-leadership. Like it's like the whole journey from, really vision to where where you are, where you want to be, to all the way to how do I now maintain this balance between, your personal goals and your personal life, your fitness, your spiritual life, your financial, all these things that self-care issues that we often ignore. And and I don't know how many guests have been on the show and said the same thing about their journey. And I did corporate life too for 22 years. And
about it.
Yeah. So, you're just like, you're on a hamster on a treadmill. Sometimes you're just doing it. And like, I would be traveling all the time and not even, like, I wouldn't even think about it, like packing my bags. I was in Europe, I was in Asia, I just did it. And you just sort of, hamster on a treadmill, and your life is, sometimes in cruise control, because you really are not in control of your life anymore. You're sort of just doing the job. And it's taken me, since I've become an entrepreneur, to realize like, oh, I was clearly a hamster on a treadmill, just running as fast as I could. And it's been fun to get off that treadmill for me, at least.
Yeah. No, it's a big machine. It's a big machine. I retired 6 months ago, and the first thing, like for the first couple of weeks, it was just strange. And then all of a sudden it hit me that I didn't have this big weight on top of I didn't have this big weight on top of me, doing the yearly admin and just like all the stuff that comes with it. And for the last 7 out of the last 10 years of my career, I was doing this 28 and 28 rotation, where I was rotating to China for 28 days, then back to America for 28 days. And after that, Well, it went Nigeria, did that for 3.5 years, then China, and then Nigeria again.
Mm,
So it's like, many deployments every 28 days.
yeah,
And, to be honest with you, it got taxing, and
yeah,
my
yeah,
health started to suffer,
yeah.
because of it. And, you know, but like I said, I had felt a couple of years before that, another season was coming, and the timing worked out right. But it
Mm,
takes a lot of thought, to write a book. I tell people, you can learn something, you can perform a task, you can teach someone how to do the task. But when you go to write about a subject, it's different. And you know that you wrote 3 books.
mm,
That a lot of thought. I had to go way, way, way back in my life and think. And then also the functional part of, trying to write a book that was unique and not saying something someone had already said, even though
yeah,
most of what we say has already been said in some way, shape, or form. But I wanted my riff, sort of
yeah, yeah.
to be on the book. So to read the book sort of is to know me, because I wrote it with an open heart, and make no
Yeah,
bones
yeah.
about that.
What's interesting is, you said, that it's a journey in and of itself, and I think it was, to for me at least, it was an unexpected journey, and I met a lot of really interesting characters along the way, and like I met with a lot of veterans who had written books, and I just wanted to, what did you learn through it? What would you do differently? So I spent a lot of time talking to people, and actually I hired a writing coach, at least for the first book, just to, like, I've never done this before, and it's just like,
Sure,
like first time going
sure,
to a gym, you hire a coach to figure it out.
100%.
And
Yeah,
and I'm like, there's a whole world of science of how do you write a book and how do you market a book. And I'm like, this is wild. It was, so for me, at least, it was fun. It was this, you mentioned
yes,
leaders need to stay curious and they need to be humble and be open to new ideas. For me, it was like an old dog with some new tricks, and it was fun. I enjoyed the journey. I really did, to the point where it was like addictive, and I wrote 2 other books right away. So
so
it's
did I.
fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
No, it is. Like one thing they teach you how to do to be consistent is, shoot for a, minimum word count per day. And
Mm,
mine was
yeah.
300. And most days I would blow that out of the water, because I just get fired up about it. And then, I'd hit a snag where, man, I had to do some deep thinking. But at the end of the day, I had a good coach too, or good guidance from the company I was working with, and very happy with the way, the book turned out so far. The reviews have been good, and we're looking forward to more reviews and feedback. And, we want to make sure that we put the best product out there that people can use,
Yeah.
give them some tools. If, if a person gets one thing out of the book, I'm happy,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
helps them, avoid, mistakes, or helps them improve their game. That's money.
I love it. Um, so like, who's your target audience? So, our listeners, we've got, entrepreneurs, we have leaders, we have military veterans, all sorts of groups of people who lead in big corporations. Who
Yeah.
should pick up this book? What's this? Who's the best audience for this book?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. This is one thing that we, fussed and discussed during the book framing, right? Because you're supposed to pick a quote unquote avatar, right?
Yeah.
Well, who does self leadership apply to?
It's
It applies
everybody.
to exactly. So it applies to individuals. And well, let's just make some categories. It applies to new leaders, young leaders. Applies certainly to people coming out of college, going into a large corporation. People who have had setbacks. I've had my own setbacks,
Yeah.
and those are usually attributed to personal traits or something I did. So this book is an excellent resource for people who have had setbacks, to learn how to get their character and their values back on track, or learn how to differentiate themselves, right? Because as well as I, in the big corporate game, the key to progression and promotion is, how are you different from the next person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has the same standard to me, but what are you doing to differentiate yourself, right? And with great character, and living your values, and being disciplined, and folks can do that, and there's tools in the book to help them to do that right away. you know
Yeah. I would say too, the other thing might be, people would really benefit from a book like this is going through a transition. Like, for example, coming out of the military, I don't know about your experience, but I achieved all my goals by 26 years old. Then I was like, all right, now what do I do? I literally didn't know what I was going to do with my life at 26. And that's not a good place to be. And it took me about 7 years to figure out, a new passion, which was manufacturing and helping blue collar workers. And that became my passion. But it took me 7 years to figure that out. I was, working for a big corporation. You take a job outside of the military and you start working, but there's no, like, when you're in the military, you're doing something for, you have a vision of where you want to go and what you want to do. And, and,
Well,
and it's meaningful work, And so when you leave and you just take a job in a corporation, it's like, what am I doing here?
in the military, you can taste the mission, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I can't speak for other services. I can only speak, from my experience with, like, every task, every training, every operation, everywhere we deployed, we knew very specifically why we were there. Now,
Yeah.
were there things they didn't tell us? Probably, sure. But for the most part, we knew why we were there,
Yeah.
right? So therefore we could believe in it, right? And in these large corporations, sometimes it's very clear, sometimes it's not, because the company I worked in was a company of companies, right?
Yeah.
All over
Yeah.
the world. So,
Yeah.
they weren't all, led and managed the same. But sometimes it's hard to know when you're in the big machine, like,
That's what
what's going on here.
yeah.
You
What's
know,
the mission? It was a question I often had. Like, what are we doing? I remember I went to my first
yeah,
all employee meeting at this one company. I worked with this company a long time, but one of the first all employee meetings, I was working at this one factory, and they announced that we lost $1 million this month, and there was a big improvement over last month. And I went, wait, we lost $1 million last month, and I couldn't understand. I'm like, shouldn't we just shut it down and save 12 million? I mean, that was my mindset. Like, why are we here? And it was, my brain couldn't understand corporate life yet.
yeah.
And it took me a while to figure out, okay, this is why we're losing money. And this is what needs to happen to be able to turn these businesses around. But I remember thinking, why are we even here? We're for losing $1 million a month. So,
Sure.
but it's very interesting. So a transition, if you're transitioning from one big thing, like a lot of times too,
Well, certainly.
athletes coming away from an athletic career and into
Oh,
what
for
do you do
sure.
next? That
Sure.
sometimes is really hard. So anytime you go through a transition, I would think
Yeah,
this book would be excellent for that as well.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I was going to ask you, in the book, you talk about sovereignty. What is sovereignty, and what does it mean? What do you mean when you say to stay sovereign? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I first learned about that when I was working inside Chevron. I was working with one of our change management consultants, and he made me aware of a study this one group did. I think International Management Consultants, Association of International Management Consultants, they did a study in 2015. Only 10%, and this is across the industry, right? It was published in 2015, but it came from 40 years of research. And the output of that was only 10% of leaders across the industry, senior leaders, are willing to live the company values.
Mm.
So what does that say for living personal values, right? And part of that discussion was him introducing me to the concept of sovereignty, and leadership. And so, sovereignty is maintaining your personal authority to resist undue influences from outside forces, to say.
I love
Yeah, I mean, when your values are contested in work and in life, you have a choice. You can stay sovereign and adhere to the core value that you selected, or you can take the path of least resistance, right, and go with the flow. And some call that the go along, get along, group. But I had been doing that, but when I heard it like that, it just stuck, and it made me it drove even more conviction, right, to live my values, and that's definitely a differentiator, and I think more people will respect you for it, but definitely, you know, definitely there's going to be some rub and some friction with senior leaders because a lot of them, they go with the flow. They're looking for the next rung on the ladder. They don't want to rock the boat. But someone's got to be the voice of reason and adhere to the company values and personal values as well. So that's kind of where that comes from.
I like that
And
a lot. Yeah, I like that
that's
a lot.
that's one of my major teachings when I work with people is
I think
we figure out what their core values are, and I challenge them. Look, for the next 2 or 3 weeks, I want you to live them 100%.
I think the one thing to mention too is if you choose a path like that, you may run into conflict with your existing company, and guess what? Maybe that company is no longer a fit for you, and that's what I found in my career is that
True.
my company moved over time to be where they took away more and more of the authority away from the local leaders, and so I found myself in a position where I didn't enjoy what I was doing anymore. Like I couldn't
Right.
lead people the way I wanted to lead them. I wasn't given the authority to do it anymore. And it was time for me to leave, because I was choosing the sovereign path. I remember I had somebody from corporate came and they wanted to put a time and attendance system in for our salary employees. So we measure every minute and everything they did. And, I had salary employees that were working 40, 50 hours a week on multiple projects. And so we weren't going to put a time and attendance system in for them. And I said, well, you can put it in as soon as you fire me, but you're not putting it in as long as I'm running this operation. And these are not that's a sovereign discussion, but it's also a difficult discussion because they're like, Rennie's not playing, he's not playing by the rules. So,
Well, no, I'm in violent agreement with that because the discipline I was in was looking out for personal safety, asset safety, and environmental safety. And a lot of times that is at direct odds with, with producing. Right.
Yep.
So, I share your experience with having those tough conversations, but
yeah,
hey, north is north.
right. Exactly. Yep.
Whether it's raining, snowing, sleeting, dark, north is north.
Yeah.
And you'll sleep better at night knowing that you stayed sovereign to what, it really has to mean something to you to stay sovereign on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would caution people, if you're not convicted about your values, don't try to stay sovereign because it just won't feel right.
Yeah.
And you'll end up hurting yourself.
Yeah. And it may shorten your career in some places too. So recognize that it's a better way to live, I think, but it's also, you may come in conflict with different companies you work. So
100%. Look, I'm flawed. I'm not a judge. I would never judge someone for not being sovereign. I'm just saying what I do. Right.
Yeah.
And what I'm not going to waver from are my core values. I'm not.
Yep. I love that. That's such a solid message. I love that. Well, we're kind of wrapping it up. What final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Well, in the spirit of lead you and self-leadership, my message would be that each and every one of us owns our decisions and actions. It can only benefit us to make decisions, good decisions, and act in a way that serves our overall mission. And we're all on a mission, right? Whether it's a family mission, a professional mission, you're on a mission. And you have to ask yourself, is this decision or action getting me closer to my big goal or taking me further away from it? Or maybe standing still. But more than likely, you're either going towards your goal or you're going back. And that's based all on your decisions, right? So, if folks need help with self-leadership, team organizational leadership, I'm here to teach and support. And that's a gap that I want to fill in my semi-retirement.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Bobby, I love this. How can our listeners find out more about you, your company, and this new book?
Sure. So the book is on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com. We also did an audio book, which, there's a nice treat in it. The gentleman that read the book, Shimon Casey, he interviewed me between chapters. So you get a little bit more context and a few more anecdotes. And we have some healthy discussion at some points. But that's a treat. It's on Audible. I'm primarily on LinkedIn. You can find me under Bobby Harrington. And you can go to strongeryoucoaching.com to find out about our executive coaching program and live immersive events.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll go ahead and put links in the show notes for all those resources. And again, leaders, listen, I hope something resonated in this discussion about you, your life. Are you truly leading yourself, or are you just running like a hamster on a treadmill? And I would encourage you, if you feel like you are on a treadmill, that you spend some time thinking about leading yourself, so you don't end up having major crisis, a breakdown, a health scare. Take sovereignty, make yourself sovereign, take control of your life. Don't let others control you. And this is, if this is resonating with you, please connect with Bobby. Please get this book and learn how to do things differently. And you're going to learn, I'm sure you reach out to Bobby, he's going to help you. If you've got questions,
Absolutely.
he's going to answer them. So I highly encourage you, if this resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, reach out to Bobby, and he can help you take that next step. So go ahead and do that. Bobby, I want to thank you for coming on the show, sharing this perspective, sharing your journey, and this new book and all that you're offering with your company. I really do appreciate that, and I really like what you're doing.
Thanks, John. I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Well, thanks again. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.